Welcome to this LangChain tutorial. In this first class, we'll get an introduction of the LangChain framework. So if you are aiming for a career in generative AI or agentic AI, mastering the LangChain framework and its ecosystem is essential. So this LangChain's ecosystem also includes LangGraph, which you use to create agentic workflows, LangSmith, which is used for debugging and monitoring these applications, and LangServe for deployment of these AI apps. So first thing is of course LangChain, which is an open source framework designed to simplify the creation of LLM powered application. Now most of us are interacting with models, right? Through ChatGPT, you talk to GPT, you use Claude.ai to talk to Claude or Google Gemini through Google's interface. But if you see, right, those are just session based chats. You send a prompt and you get a response. But if you want to create a coding application, right, a code that programmatically connect with LLMs, that you can do with LangChain. So LangChain has tools and APIs to programmatically connect with any LLM. So it allows you to refine and customize some information, making LLM generated responses more precise and contextually more meaningful. What it means is that you can link LLMs to some external data source. It may be database, it may be some documents, and you can also call functions to do some computations. So through that, you can enhance your LLM model's capabilities. That's what you can do with LLM. So you can develop some powerful AI applications like smart chatbots, advanced QA system, that is your RAG workflow, summarization services. So all that you can do with LangChain. Now, first thing you have to install LangChain, which is available as libraries in both Python and JavaScript. So here I'll stick with Python. So if you want to install LangChain package in Python, that's what you can run this command, pip install LangChain. Prerequisite is you should have Python 3.10 plus installed. And if you are planning for TypeScript, then you can install it as an npm package, npm install LangChain. For that prerequisite, you should have Node.js 20 plus installed. So before getting into the first program using LangChain, I would like to go through some of the core components of LangChain that will give you an idea what all LangChain provides. So there is models, that actually is a standardized interface in LangChain through which you can connect to different models. So you can connect to OpenAI, Anthropic, Google Gemini, or many open source models include using Hugging Face like Meta AI's Llama, DeepSeek LLM, right? Or you can also connect to locally downloaded LLM through Ollama. So all that you can do just through one standard interface, which is like same kind of code, right? So you can easily swap from one model to another. Then it also gives you prompt template that is used to create a dynamic template actually. So it gives you some placeholder you can keep in your prompt, and real value for those placeholders can be injected later to create a dynamic prompt. So you have that facility also through LangChain. Then there is tools. So tools actually, so LLMs have some limitations actually. So first thing is models are trained up to some cutoff date, and they have data up to that time only. So if you ask them even like something which happened beyond that cutoff date, like what happened Tuesday, yesterday or today, they may not give you a correct answer. So that is one thing, though many LLMs now have that web browsing capability, so they can bypass this limitation of cutoff training date, but that is there. Another problem is LLMs does not have domain data or company specific data, which is what you do through RAGs, right? So that is what you get through tools. So tools in LangChain gives that functionality to agents actually to fetch real-time data, execute code, query some external database. All that you can do through these tools, which are actually, in case of Python functions only, where you can write that logic and you can configure it in your model that it has to call these particular functions. Now model decides actually when to invoke this tool based on the conversation you are having. So based on the context, that will be decided by the LLM, how to call those tools, what input or right parameters, input arguments, what all it should provide. So all that LLM will decide. Then we also have agents. So when you combine agent with tools, then you can actually create systems that can complete some complex tasks step by step. So unlike a basic application which you create where you just send a prompt and get a response from an LLM, now with tools and agents, you can create a proper application where you can have steps to think, to plan, to adapt. All that you can do step by step. So with the agents, you work toward giving greater intelligence and flexibility. Then, of course, there are chains, as the name LangChain itself suggests. Chains are the main concept of LangChain. They allow you to link multiple components together as a single workflow. So you can link multiple components together into a single workflow where each link is doing a specific task. So one task may be formatting your prompt by injecting the real values, then you retrieve some data, then you do some reasoning. All that you can do as a workflow step by step. So that's what you can achieve through creating chains. Nowadays, with LCEL, which is LangChain Expression Language, you do it using pipe symbol. So pipe symbol acts as a delimiter. So one task, pipe symbol, another task. That's how you write it. And these chains you can execute sequentially or in parallel or as a conditional branches also. So all of these things you can do with chains. Then another thing is you can give memory also. So LLMs by design actually are stateless. Each prompt is treated as a new request to the model. But if you are creating a proper AI application, you may need to retain information about previous interactions. Right? You are creating a conversation chatbot or question and answer bot. So it may need to retain the context. So that also you can do using giving by giving some memory to the task. So that also is there in LangChain. So you can provide a short-term memory where it is thread-based actually. So if there are 5 users, let's say, so each user will have their own memory in their session. Or you can have a long-term memory also, where it put across different conversation and sessions. So memory will span across many sessions. So long-term memory actually you'll have to persist so that it is there beyond session. So these are some of the components. Now, when you have some idea about these components, we'll just try to understand how you actually integrate all of them to create a proper LangChain application. So if you take example of one retrieval augmented generation application, RAG, then it may have this kind of workflow, right? You get the query. So first, as a first step, you send it to LLM to reformat or formulate that query to make it a proper query. Then using that query, you retrieve some data which is relevant to that query. That may be your second step. Then again, that data you will send to LLM to summarize all that information which you retrieved. Then yet again you may send that summarized information and your actual query to the LLM to actually get the final answer. So you may have all these steps in your application. So here is the image which tells all these. So first you generate search query, send it to LLM, then you get again the search query in a proper format. Then using that you retrieve some documents based on that query. You do a semantic search, get some documents, then again you send it to LLM to summarize that information. Then again you send to the LLM summarize information and your query to get the final answer based on that query. So that is one workflow. So hopefully by the end of maybe this whole course, you will be able to create such a workflow. So that's the expectation. Thanks for watching the video. Please don't forget to like and subscribe.